As the Israeli regime escalates its attacks on Palestinians, we now welcome Musheir El-Farra, who's the chair of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign in the UK city of Sheffield and is a Palestinian from the town of Khan Yunis in the Gaza Strip. Musheir, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Musheir, the latest escalation comes after years of solid support from the US administration of Donald Trump, which went one step further in its support for the criminal Israeli regime on recognizing the whole of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. As part of the context to the current escalation, we have the moves to ethnically cleanse occupied East Jerusalem with the forced eviction of Palestinians from their homes in the neighbourhood of Sheikh Jarrah. The theft of Palestinian homes by Israeli settlers is nothing new, but this move has sparked international condemnation and mass protests by Palestinians. How are Palestinians organising to defend themselves from this onslaught?
Well, the plight of the people of Sheikh Jarrah and Quds, whom are being forced to leave their homes by the Israeli army, has united the Palestinians everywhere. Because these are, allow me to go back to the history of these 19 to 25 families in Sheikh Jarrah in Jerusalem. They were originally refugees from 1948, when the Palestinians were subjected to the worst ethnic cleansing of that period, when 532 villages were destroyed and 800,000 Palestinians were driven by force, by massacres, out of their homes, their villages, their farms, everywhere, and all aspects of Palestinian culture was destroyed. Those families come from the refugees who were forced to leave, like, for instance, the family of Al-Kurd, which is famous now. You can interview them on TV. They come from the city of Haifa. So the issue is that when we say it's an ongoing ethnic cleansing, we mean it's ongoing ethnic cleansing. The organization between the Palestinians, the support between the Palestinians happens spontaneously. For the first time, we saw like people from inside pre-1948, not for the first time really, but many of them came from pre-1948 inside what is called now Israel, in big numbers to come and support, and organize with the people of Sheikh Jarrah, try to stop the police from forcing them to leave. Palestinians in East Jerusalem itself were united with the Palestinians of Sheikh Jarrah. Sadly, the people in the West Bank are oppressed by our own authority, and that's a shameful stance. So they cannot really come out in the streets because the Palestinian security force shamefully will chase them. But the Palestinians have organized in that sense to support them. And then, of course, because of the call that came from Sheikh Jarrah for Gaza to interfere, and the Gazans are very supportive of any cause that is related to freedom, like the rest of the Palestinians. So then the Gaza retaliated by supporting them in the way as of resistance of attacking Israeli targets. And this organization has happened because of the criminality and stupidity of the Israeli government. Why should you evict 1927 families from their homes by force when they lived there for 60, 70 years, 73 years actually, 1948, under United Nations agreement? It's the supremacy way of thinking. It's the racist way of thinking that those people are not up to our level and have to kick them out to bring Zionists, settler colonial Zionists in their place. This mentality will bring the whole world into chaos, and it is bringing the whole world into chaos. It's part of the settler colonialism in history, which is when they occupy African parts of Latin America, etc., they said these people are backwards and poor. We're going to bring their condition up good and try to bring them to civilization. That's the colonialism. That's how they saw it, and they still see it, sadly. And there's no way that anybody can accept that. I'm very pleased with the report and the support from people all over the world. I was touched. I couldn't hear all of it, but the people from Kenya, it's really heartening that people are seeing it. And the Palestinians are organizing and will continue to organize through popular resistance against this Israeli occupation, this Israeli war crimes. So they brought it up on themselves because they didn't only oppress Palestinian Muslims, stopping them from their mosques as well. Only last 2 weeks, Easter passed, and the Roman Orthodox Christians were stopped by force. They were beaten. The pilgrims were beaten from having their ceremonies. So it's about people. We don't want to put it in the context of religion. It's about people. People of Sheikh Jarrah are people before they are Palestinians. This is how we should think about it, and this is how it should be. We are for people's freedom against oppression, against colonialism, against all, aspects of exploitation that is done by big countries in the Western capitalist world, by big corporations which are oppressing poorer people in Africa and Latin America and Asia, everywhere. So it's something that belongs to a bigger cause. And for the Palestinians, I don't know if it's bad or good luck, we are in the heart of it, but we are part of this struggle anywhere, and we are in the forefront. And hopefully people, I can't speak, of course, for them. I'm not living now in Palestine, but hopefully people will find the strength with our support to continue with their resistance to this terrible project, this crime, this racist state.
Thank you so much for offering that historical background to what's happening today. In the current context, we have the Biden administration declaring its full support for Israel and its supposed right to defend itself, and blocking any move from the UN Security Council to condemn these crimes against the Palestinian people. Once again, we're sold the story through the mainstream Western media, which we know is heavily tied to the Zionist regime's propaganda machine, of Israel being some sort of victim that has to defend itself from Palestinian attacks. But we're actually talking about the resistance of a besieged, occupied, oppressed people, as you've noted, with scarce resources, nothing comparable to the military might and power of the Israeli regime.
Hello?
Hi, can you hear me, Machine?
Yes, I can hear you now, yes, yeah.
Okay, I was just going back to what you were saying about how this is not a case of Israel defending itself, it's a case of Palestinians defending themselves against Israel.
Well, what the Biden administration has said is a repetition of the distortion of facts that is, has been happening for 73 years by different, American administrations, by European countries. They are part of it, including our British government. It's collusion with the Israelis, distortion of facts. Saying they started with the big lie that Palestine had no people in it, when we had a strong society, a strong culture. We had theaters, we had cinemas, we had factories, we had farms, we had doctors, we had engineers, we had every aspect of a society that is thriving. And then they destroyed it completely, and they said to the world, people without a land. That is a continuation of the destruction of facts. So sadly, the Biden administration is doing the same, the ugly distortion of facts. But what we see in America is very encouraging. There are some movements in support of the Palestinians, which weren't there in the past. We are watching a real change. In Chicago, for instance, we saw a massive demonstration. So hopefully, this American administration, although we cannot really rely on it, because any administration, any American administration is colluding with oppression all over the world, not only Palestine. Take for instance the case of Cuba, who we have our hearts and minds with the people of Cuba all the time, because they are with us as well. We regard them as part of the liberation of the world, and see how every administration is having more and more, creating more and more trouble to Cuba, anywhere in the world. So we hope that, although they don't want it, but under public pressure, eventually they may change their policies. But we're not surprised by the stand of the American administration, because they are responsible for all or most of the evils in the world. And that's not rhetoric, that's not slogans, that's the truth. What they've done in Iraq, for instance, destroyed the country completely under false pretense of having weapons of mass destruction. What they did in Afghanistan, what they did in the past in Vietnam, Korea, wherever you mention the word or the expression or the name American administration, it's associated with oppression. Nicaragua is another example. I can stand from here till a long time saying the number of crimes that they committed by brainwashing people through their gigantic media machine. And Israel is part of this gigantic media machine, so they both lie and distort facts. Israel was never under danger. Israel is always the culprit. All these attacks on the Palestinians, or all these resistance by the Palestinians, was provoked by an Israeli aggression. And I can if I have time, I'll mention a lot of, like 2014, 2012, when they assassinated the highest commander of Al-Qassam Brigade in 2008, 2009, when they killed 27 Palestinians. A lot of examples. And then the Palestinians retaliate, and then they tell the world we are under attack. And if you see the coverage, of the Palestinian rockets that land in Israel, yes, they are brave rockets. That's what they are, primitive compared to the military might of the Israelis. You can see them flying in the air. So they are still primitive and slow, and they're not causing the damage that they try to portray to the world. If they cause a fire here and there, the Israelis with one F-16 half-a-ton bomb, they can destroy a total neighborhood, all neighborhood. I just heard the news of 2 families, a Tanani family in Jabalia in the north, who lost 4 children, a pregnant mother and the father, so 6 members plus a baby, and the Tilvani family in the middle camps in Al-Maghazi, who lost 2 children, the mother and father, beautiful children. And then they say, we are defending ourselves.
Musheir, I'm so sorry I have to cut you off there, but we've run out of time. Thank you so much for joining us. That's Musheir El-Farra, the chair of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign in the UK city of Sheffield. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, for offering your valuable insight into the ongoing war crimes of the apartheid state of Israel and the importance of Palestine as part of the forefront, as you said, the forefront of the global struggle of oppressed peoples. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thanks.